sir. It'll be the agency where we always tune into complete tomfoolery from a lot of different parties here, Sundown, and it looks like just looking at the rainbow of arrows at the bottom right of that mini-map, there is going to be a lot of action that's going to take a lot of time to resolve.
Yeah, so you have to remember, though, that the henchmen will also be a couple of those arrows. Those are generally those, it's actually really hard to tell what color those are, so apologize my actual color blindness, but it's not necessarily quite that many people there, but you can see the outlines on the wall. There is still hanging around at least 4 players right now, and we saw a couple drops, so...
With a few shields, I think Extra right now actually got a very good instance of having a lot of loot from one of these scavenger loadouts, and being in this position, you get to be a little bit incognito, but then after that, you come into these types of confrontations where it's someone else on a scavenger a scavenger hunt as well for loot, and when they're there, you get into an isolated fight.
It seems like they're both aware of the other's presence. First beams come out, 34 with the headshot, 17 right after with that gray SMG, following up with the tack, and that was relatively easy for Luzi there against Namis here. Or Namis RR, so the controller player not quite coming out on top there.
You can have people in the fight slow down, look right back at you. Now Pirka will look back at the own person right next to him, try to get that quick elimination down, then move on afterwards. But it's all about time in the early game. You spend a little bit too much, and then it's over, but I think this man right here will have just enough to move out, but there are fights breaking out all around the island.
Yeah, so everyone just is actually getting the time to take their isolated 1v1s. Good job on Pirka to take advantage of that low opponent there. And Hansel got pushed. Fighting around that tree kind of gave him an initial advantage, but nope, here comes a third party again. You can see in that bottom right-hand corner, 3 of those arrows converging with the 4th coming in. Takiso gets picked up. That was the original 1v1. Hansel picks up Pirka as he tries to collapse in on that. And just lots of long early game engagements, lots of people going down, only 39 left in the lobby, so plenty of placement points have been going over. Again, we talk about it, it's top 75 and then top 50, and then it goes down into increments of 10 until it gets into kind of an exponentially higher rate at the top end. So you want to play as much as you can for top 5, but even just staying on the island this long is going to net you a certain amount of points. However, a lot of people right now, they're just getting really thirsty for the eliminations, and it's allowing some people to really capitalize and push farther up the board, but also some players who are consistent are probably going to be able to qualify into that top 600 just by waiting out the bloodthirstiness of everyone else.
Yeah, but we saw yesterday that even if you end up waiting out, you just get a win with maybe 3 eliminations. It's never enough, so everyone's trying to emulate and replicate this formula of trying to get into boxes, trying to finish fights time and time again. That being said, people are starting to learn defense, just like Hansel here, to counteract that playstyle. So they can wait in the shadows, but if it does, they're not too far.
I'm going to challenge you on the fact that placements aren't just enough, because I do a lot of like going through it, watching VODs, looking at the Fortnite competitive Reddit. One player brought it up today as that fight ends up resolving in Luz's favor, that Ace PGH was 101st in NA East yesterday, which roughly in NA East, we know there are double qualifiers in the number of invites. There's going to be, I would say, top 200 in every, I don't want to say every region, but the major regions is pretty much going to get you in, qualified between the two, just based off of the double qualifiers and number of invited players. But Ace PGH had the least amount of kills in the top 200. He had a combined total of 14 kills over his 9 games. However, his placements, 15th, 1st, 6th, 87th and 100th, where he gets no points during either of those, and then 9th, 6th, and 2nd. So was able to get to 202 points with only 14, which is then 64 of your points, 54 of your points coming from elimination, so like a 75% placement threshold. And if he is able to repeat a similar placement-based performance tomorrow, then he's going to be playing in that top 600 group. It was like almost a 2/3, 1/3 split there.
I mean, I'll accept the challenge, especially if you mention the name Ace PGH, because I've actually been tuned in to his performance over time, as well as, you know, getting a few VOD reviews done exactly of how he used to play way back in the early days. When it's an experienced player that didn't actually get all the way through and get invited playing these games, 100% I agree with you. It's very feasible to get that placement formula down. You kind of take away one of those consistent games that you need all the way in the top 5. You give yourself a little bit more room. So I honestly don't even think any of us are wrong here. 100% you could play for eliminations and also have a placement-based formula. It's just that placement is a lot harder. It revolves a lot more around your brain, around the decision-making, more so than just going for fight after fight after fight. Have nerves that are kind of there as well. You don't have a teammate with you. You don't have the opportunity to play off of someone else or a different entity in the game. Like right here, this moment with Geo, you don't get this in a duo type situation. You don't get an instant elimination ever that just translates into points. In solos, you can move around, get a little bit, as you said, snaky, rat style gameplay moments where you're playing off of all the other entities, of all the blind spots of people. You can pinpoint, you know, if you see someone, that someone's separate, there's not a partner coming by from any angle or any other direction.
Yeah, and you can see there, Geo made an interesting decision of opting to keep his purple AR in the third slot there, rather than picking up the mythic Meowscles rifle, which definitely hits hard. It pushes right in through that door, really be able to find it. Oh, Lord! 13 HP, but he gets through. Walters missing everything after that first initial burst. Felt like he had enough damage. Jolski trying to do something about it as he's the one who's now back up on the high ground. Luz slid down a little bit lower. It should give him enough time. No, gonna take some fall damage. Desperately wants to get the shield up. Phases up into the cone. Doesn't really quite get it down, but Luz goes down. Jolski hits the shots when he needs to. And now he's gonna get some... Oh, no, as I say that, a rocket comes in right away, but honestly, that's not really too threatening. It's more just checking out what's there.
To move up time and time again. I'm not going to say that he got lucky, but getting that little bit of a scoop up into his floor to dodge that wall edit, maybe confuse Luz. It happened, and he capitalized off of it, got the 2-tap. And Nulfi knows exactly where he is now, although he has a lot of builds to work with and a launch pad actually to use, which he does. It's going to be him using a legendary heavy AR to follow through. Doesn't actually get all the tags that he wanted. A lot of damage down though. Gets to stay on some of the loot. Chooses not to even go for floppers. Denied
so good.
A launch pad too, but he's gonna, yup, he had the choice. Invest in the only one he has to chase this elimination all the way to the edges of the earth on this map. Nulfi is looking for his 4th point right here,
so
or
greedy.
4th elimination to make it 16, and he's still going for it. I mean, this is what happens when you have a little bit of a lighter lobby. We talk about difficulties. You'll have people aggressing on you even at the later portions of the game, and this fight is so isolated here, Sundown, that he's allowed to do it with no consequences.
Oh, this is so good. We're going to see him from another angle, using the wall to set himself up, going to rocket himself down into the box. Will he opt to fully commit for it? He does, using the rocket to protect himself, drops in. Jolski, that is textbook. You put the cone on top, the walls on either side. You fire the rocket down to the corner. The cone will block the line of sight from the explosion. A priority and a hot spot for players who want to play aggressively, because both of these are incredibly strong.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the other things with the relationship of loot and solos and even the pushes that we've seen so far. To every single solution, there's going to be another problem. Yes, you have Sky's loadout, but when you use it, people hear the fire rate. All these players who've been waiting now so far, not gotten too many eliminations like you see on your screen right now with Cask, they're going to be looking to actually activate now. They've been waiting this whole time. They'll have a lot of materials. They'll be in positions. Nulfi, who we saw get into a new problem of rotating after that big fight, is going to get ended right there. He's going to get taken out because of that early decision for playing for eliminations. Now these placement-based players will be on top and in positions to take this game away.
And notice how the two players who we were watching taking those mid-game fights both got picked off there in the elimination feed, and now we're seeing the players who weren't taking the early action, the ones who are focusing on rotating. All of them are already in the zone. However, they're going to be getting more placement points. We talked about how it's kind of exponentially raised towards the win and towards that top 5, but as you keep getting in these thresholds, you get more and more opportunities to also eliminate players with kind of less risk involved. You can see sometimes it's more just catching somebody rotating. It's about where you look, what angles you peek, and how well you cover yourself. And different players thrive in different parts of these games. And right now we're seeing Cask set up incredibly well for success here to catch people rotating. Between that legendary burst in his first slot, which he has out now, and the mythic boom bow that you get from the rig over on the side, and then the launch pad to be able to go far, as we see right away. He's going to go to the far side of the zone, box himself up. Oh no, he's going to cycle another launch pad and then go to the far side of the zone. look to box himself up directly on this player and actually just taking the fight right away, hopped in the box but gets walled off. Now the question is, does he opt to go down? And he's going to. He needs to get onto the far side and then get into a spot where he can use these long-range weapons to try and catch the other players rotating, or at minimum, just get to the safe area first and let other people fall. We've gone from 18 to 12 so quickly already in the zone, and it's only going to keep dropping as Evolve picks up Confused, Gift gets King Lazu, and we have our top 10. Castbo just still trying to survive and get to the safe zone. You can see he's almost there. Let's take a look at the rest of the lobby now, Shy.
Yeah, I mean, down below, he just escaped one of the scariest other mythic weapons in the game. Although he has a bow that's good at long range, there's a drum gun with a big ammo count at the bottom, and that player escapes is going to be Tana, who was so low before, into the sky. Cask follows through, though, with a big shot afterwards. If he lands here and gets this elimination, he can just get the entire game sorted out for himself, but Tana picks up a quick one with that drum gun. You heard how fast that player went down in the box. It was almost instantaneous. Both players taking those 50 potions to heal right up as the zone still moves around. 9 players still left alive. Sundown. Another launch pad. Cask is just following through, trying to survive. Doesn't have that much to use of his own. He's looking to just stay all the way till that final 1v1.
He just wants to get in the zone, but he needs to be careful here. You need to be hard anchored to that mountain because Cobras, who's up on the high ground, has an RPG. If you're just playing Billy Goat over on the side, he's going to be able to knock you down and send you into the abyss. Look at how awkward this zone is. We talked about the moving zone. You are quite literally moving over a vertical slant. That is a 70-degree angle. You have to use builds here. Everyone is going to be burning through their materials. 7 players remaining as Keyboard goes down to the storm. INV Vault has a great loadout to be sitting on the top, a flopper to also help himself out, but kind of hurting in the effective HP portion, down to 130. Cask gets a tick over onto Tirko, and there's the pressure from that drum gun. It seems like we've heard it in almost every single endgame, and his presence is putting it down, but Cobra says enough of that. High grounds and Rocket, that's the old story, and as we swap over to Tana with that mythic drum gun, Midas making his presence felt known.
Yep, this is the new story, at least, of this competition. It's been the most prominent weapon in performance, and he goes for some damage, gets it down, but never gets to pick up that elimination. Cask, we followed out before, is now removed a 1v1 of vertical proportions, and a grappler can make it so easy to traverse and actually fix out. It's going to be a big grab up top and gets high ground. Yes, Tana is up there with 2 of the most powerful weapons in the game, and he finds damage on the back of Cobra, who gets stricken down to fall afterwards. No mats to use.